After a more than 20-year hiatus, the 2020 Supra returned on the market triumphantly, bringing back a legendary nameplate from Japan. And you might think that after just 1 year on the market, Toyota wouldn't be quick to want to make any improvements to the car. Oh, but you'd be wrong. Toyota is going to be making year-on-year improvements to the Supra, starting with this 2021 model year. I have been given an exclusive opportunity to drive the 2021 Supra 2.0 and 3.0, which has been increased in horsepower. Now, the 2.0 has a 4-cylinder engine that's new for this year. The only way you're going to be able to spot one from the outside are these different 18-inch wheels. There's also a A91 special edition that comes in either blue or black. I think the blue is gorgeous. We weren't able to test one though because Toyota just hasn't built any due to the coronavirus situation. If you want to take a look at the A91 edition, check out my 2021 Supra first look review. But without further ado, let's get the Toyota Supra 2.0 out on the road.
Alright, so if you'll excuse the now yellow Supra driving in the background, we apologize, but we had some corrupted video footage, so please enjoy this nice yellow 4-cylinder Supra driving around a racetrack while I gather my thoughts about driving the 4-cylinder car from a few weeks ago when Toyota brought the car to me. So let's go over what you get with the Toyota Supra 2.0, which is new for the 2021 model year. Now, other markets like Japan have had a 4-cylinder Supra for the first year now, but this model is all new in the US. It's a 2.0 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine with a twin scroll turbo. It produces 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, which is obviously down a few horsepower from the inline-six model that was offered last year. Now, just like the larger inline-six, which is known as the B58, this is also a BMW engine, this one being the B48. Now, being a BMW motor, it produces really good torque low down in the rev range. You can get full access to that 295 pound-feet of torque from just 1,100 RPM, and the power does stay pretty linear, although like a lot of 4-cylinder turbocharged engines, you do start to feel it die off at that top end. So that's where this 4-cylinder car just does not really excel, where its 6-cylinder counterpart really shines, and that is at the high end of the rev range, and it just doesn't seem to rev nearly as quickly. Toyota is quoting a 5-second flat 0 to 60 run, which is relatively quick, although I've noticed taking it from a start, you do get considerable turbo lag once the turbo spools up if you just go and plant your foot without any warning. Putting it into sport mode obviously helps, and you get a little bit more of a crackle and pop from the exhaust, although it is much more of, let's just call it an iPhone speaker, whereas the 3.0 is more of a concert style boombox. Just loud crackles, loud pops all over the place when you let off the throttle or on the overrun. I'm just not getting that as much from this 4-cylinder car, so it's a little bit disappointing. Just loud crackles, loud pops all over the place when you let off the throttle or on the overrun. I'm just not getting that as much from this 4-cylinder car, so it's a little bit disappointing to the ear when you go and really hammer this 4-cylinder car. That being said, it will probably be a little bit more efficient than the 6-cylinder car. The EPA hasn't published fuel economy figures just yet, but we're expecting it to average about 27 mpg in the city and 32 on the highway, making it a little bit better than the 6-cylinder model. And what's interesting about this 4-cylinder model is it is about 200 pounds lighter than the 6-cylinder car, and a lot of that has to do with the engine, obviously, with 2 less cylinders, but we also have smaller 18-inch wheels, we have smaller brake rotors, starters. We also have a fixed suspension instead of the active suspension that you get on the 6-cylinder car. We also don't have the active differential in the back, meaning that this car is a little bit more predictable than the 6-cylinder car when you go to toss it into a corner and slide it. You also get some fewer amenities on the inside, at least on the base model. You only get a 4-speaker audio system, although the one we've been sent here has the nicer JBL audio, and we get manually adjustable seats. So with a little bit less weight on the nose, I would say that this 4-cylinder car does feel a little bit more agile than the 6-cylinder car, but the lack of power is definitely noticeable, and the lack of sound is certainly noticeable. So now that we've talked through the 4-cylinder Supra's driving experience, let's go ahead and check out how the cabin has been moderately changed on this base model Supra.
All right, so now that we've driven the 4-cylinder model, I've pulled over to show you some of the differences inside. There aren't many, but there's a couple things that we should mention. For starters, we don't have the head-up display here, so that when I adjust the controls here on the right, you're gonna get your audio information on the gauge cluster, which is interesting because when I first drove the Supra, I always wondered why that black square just didn't show any information. When you don't have the head-up display, that's where that information is gonna show. We've got the larger, I think it's 8.8-inch touchscreen display. Obviously, we have BMW's iDrive down here. I think they call it Supra Connect in the Toyota. It's not any different from last year, but they have discontinued the smaller 6-inch screen. I was on the phone with a Toyota PR person the other day, and I said, I've never even seen the smaller screen. He's like, yeah, not that many people bought it. That's why we're just giving you this screen as standard now. We have BMW's awesome home buttons that you can assign to navigations or stereo, whatever you want. And the other thing I noticed is we don't have the wireless charger here, so the little lid for the tray here is now gone. I actually kind of prefer it without the lid, although I will note I put my phone and my sunglasses here and took a corner really quick, and they launched into the passenger seat. So still not a great place to put stuff. I wish Toyota would make this a little deeper, or maybe put a lid that cover, like a closable lid that lets you cover it. Other than that, not really much to speak of, although I will mention the seats on the 4-cylinder are a little bit different. You can see we don't have the full leather here. We have Alcantara in the middle. We also have this really nice, it's white and red stitching. I think that looks really cool, especially when you have a color like red on this one here. And the seats we have here are manually adjusted. So I have manual triggers here that I can use to slide the seat forward and backwards, although I do have power lumbar and power seat bolster adjustments as well. And if you get the base 4-cylinder Supra, you're only going to get a 4-speaker audio system, but the car we have here has the 12-speaker JBL system. We get a couple other safety features along with that as well. I can't talk about pricing yet. That's going to be mentioned a little later on. And just a little thing, I don't know if you knew this about most BMW products do this. If I toss the car into manual mode and I push the park button, it's gonna go back to default like a ghost moves it. I thought that was kind of cool to mention. But now that I've driven the 4-cylinder car, I really want to hop in the updated 6-cylinder model. So as you just saw, the Supra 2.0 with the 4-cylinder engine left me just a little bit cold. I think maybe Toyota should have just called that model the Celica. But let's go over here and test this new 2021 Toyota Supra 3.0 with the updated, more powerful 6-cylinder engine to see if that lives up to the Supra name. All right, so let's see if this improved 6-cylinder model can be a little bit more exciting. I'm gonna put it in sport mode, manual, all that stuff. We're gonna do a launch control, and let's see if this one can put a bigger smile on my face. I think you can tell almost immediately. Let's downshift. Oh yes, you could tell almost immediately that my big ass grin has returned. The sound of this 6-cylinder engine, just how I remember it, although they have made some improvements, now producing 382 horsepower. That's 14% more than last year when it produced 335. You're also getting a little more torque, 368 pound-feet. That's only up 3 pound-feet, but hey, more is more. They got the power through a new dual brand exhaust manifold that now has 6 ports. That's going to improve the heat management in the engine. There's also a new piston design. It's going to give this engine 10.2 to 1 compression, which is higher than before, giving it more torque higher up in the rev range, and I can definitely feel it when I'm up here. Yes, it definitely feels like it's pulling harder to redline than it did last year. Even when I'm all the way up here, turbocharged engines can sometimes run out of puff. This one, not doing it, pulling all the way to redline, hard, sounding amazing while doing it. That's going to lower the 60 time, so this is a little quicker than last year's model. 0 to 60 takes just 3.9 seconds, down from 4.1, so they've managed to shave 0.2 seconds off the 0 to 60 time. That's pretty incredible. Let's go ahead and take a corner here. Downshift it again, it gives me the shift. Steering, super precise, can kick the back end out a little bit, put the power down easily. Oh, love this engine. This is definitely the engine you've got to get. They've improved other stuff too. They've put aluminum braces on the strut tower, giving the car a little bit more rigidity. They've revised the damper tuning, and they've revised the programming all around. The throttle is a little bit different. The transmission tuning's a little bit different. The throttle is super connected, super responsive, especially when you have it in sport mode, but it doesn't feel BMW M levels of aggressive, because I've noticed that mid-corner throttle in a couple of M cars can be a little bit too twitchy and jerky. It feels like Toyota has managed to get the throttle just where I like it, where it's super responsive. They've still kept the car tuned more towards comfort. If I toss it through a corner too quickly, you will feel a little bit of body lean, but once you get to that right amount of lean, it's real easy to predict, very easy to slide this car. It's definitely a slidey monster. I have a feeling that Toyota, maybe next year or the year after, is going to do a more powerful version, maybe 400 horsepower, maybe a little more, and they're going to stiffen it, give it better aero, wing, all that kind of stuff to make a more track-focused model. This one isn't that. This is definitely more of a road car than a track car, but I absolutely adore it. If you want me to sum up the differences between this car and the 2.0 that we just drove in one sentence, it would be this. When the light goes yellow in the 4-cylinder car, I hit the brakes. When the light goes yellow in this car, I hit the gas and I make it through the light. That's the biggest difference between these two cars. So if it were my money, I'd save up and get this 6-cylinder car. There's no other way to do a Supra. The Supra was meant to have an inline-six. It was meant to sound like that. And that's why this 2021 Supra 3.0 is the one I prefer of the two, by far. Wow, so that was the 2021 Toyota Supra. I can't believe that after just a single model year, Toyota already went and made so many changes to this car. You saw what I thought about the 2.0 model, the 4-cylinder. It's fine. It definitely bridges the gap between the 86 and the Supra, although you look at it and you hear these rumors that Toyota is going to put a turbo in the 86, the next generation model, and I don't know where that's going to leave the 4-cylinder Supra. As for this new 6-cylinder car, the changes that they have made are excellent. It was already an amazing car, but the added power has just made it that much more of a riot. I can't tell you how much the cars cost just yet. That information is still under embargo, but we will share that in the description of this video when that information becomes public. But what I can tell you is that the 4-cylinder model is significantly cheaper than the 6-cylinder model, but if you can afford it, the 6-cylinder is the way to go. I guarantee it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. See you next time.